We're live at Texas, and Kyle Busch has won 2 of the last 4 races. Of course, last year's winner at Talladega, the longest track on the circuit, at Talladega Super Speedway, celebrating 40 years of some of the most exciting racing. You can be part of the action. The ARCA Rematch, the Nationwide, the Sprint Cup Series, April 24th through the 26th. Great seats still available. It's a great weekend. They have the best deal in 40 years, a $40 ticket for Sunday's Sprint Cup race. Call 877-GO-TO-DEGA or log on to www.talladegasuperspeedway.com for more details, and we hope to see you at the races. As we get ready for this race here, Jeff, what's on the Verizon checklist?
You talking to me or Texas?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Okay. Now, today, Chris, when you think about coming here to Texas, one of the things we're going to be worried about has got to be watching the weather. That's not just no rain, folks.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
The wind.
But the wind, the track conditions themselves are so different than what we've seen all week long, and these guys are practicing. That could be a factor. Number 2, when you come to a 500-mile, we've seen so far this year, we've had a lot of engine woes, and you're going to have a lot of speed here. 500 miles can be real hard on these engines, so you got to watch out what could be happening there. And last but not least, you got to be watching pit road. We saw yesterday in the Nationwide Series race, a lot of guys got caught entering this place. You're carrying so much speed around that corner, and that little yellow line where you see the orange cone can get you in trouble real quick.
All right, you talk about the engines. Now, Ford has won 9 Texas races, but last year we had 5 DNFs in this race. So it's not just really a Ford or Roush Fenway problem this year.
No, they've all had issues so far. A Toyota, Chevrolet, even the Dodge folks.
So who's corrected it for today, or do you know?
You talk to the guys, everybody believes they have.
Okay.
That's going to be the key thing. They think they can go 500 miles. It'll be interesting to see if they've got it figured out.
And in terms of what can a crew chief do to help his driver with pit road, another one of your items on your checklist?
You got to be talking to him coming down the back straightaway. Don't get caught speeding in. Touch your brakes, heat your brakes up. That's one of the key things they're not doing, to get enough heat in the brakes.
And the wind gust up to 35 miles per hour, but if you heard Carl Edwards say earlier, it's changing direction, so that will create an important adjustment during the race as we head down trackside.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your Grand Marshal and Samsung Mobile Gentlemen Start Your Engines contest finalist, Mark Freddy, as he delivers the most famous words in motorsports.
Gentlemen, start your engine!
And we're getting ready to go 500 miles here at the Great American Speedway. Carl Edwards has won the last few. David Rudiman on the pole. Jeff Gordon starting up front. He was last in last year's race, but he's your points leader.
Not afraid to go fast. You can pull off a win here today.
On the other hand, Kyle Busch hasn't won a race in about 19 hours.
It hadn't been long, but I love going into this race here because it's a very unpredictable race, and the unknowns of this 500-mile race, like some guys starting up in the top 10, Paul Menard and Joey Logano starting up there. But speaking of gunslinging, when I look at the fastest cars in practice yesterday in those 2 sessions, it's a continuation of Martinsville. Jimmy Johnson and that number 11 car, they seem to have the best cars on the long runs. But an operation that's trying to stop a downhill slide is Roush Fenway. The 2 short tracks, a total disaster. Matt Kenseth qualified 3rd, and don't forget Carl Edwards, the man that won 9 races in 2008, trying to get 3 in a row. So Roush Fenway, they want to put a halt to the fact that the 2 best cars was the 48 and the 11.
All right, 2 to go before we go green. Let's have a look at the starting lineup for today's race. Dave Blaney took the last qualifying spot as 5 drivers went home. He got that last spot by 12 1/1000ths of a second over Joe Nemechek. Eric Almirola trying to find funding to continue on in the season. And Darrell mentioned Elliott Sadler. Braz Keselowski in a 5th Hendrick car, and Max Pappas in a Michael Waltrip Toyota. Bill Elliott for the Wood Brothers. They're back, and there's Reed Sorensen driving for Richard Petty. Casey Mears for Richard Childress. Jamie McMurray strong in practice in his Ford. Regan Smith has finished every Cup race he's ever started. There with Michael Waltrip, row 17. Martin Truex Jr., David Stremme in the 16th row. And as you look at the rest of our starting lineup, Darrell, let's get a word with our pole sitter.
And David Rudiman, it's a DW. Got a copy, buddy?
Hey, DW, what's going on?
Brother, it's time. It's time to pick up that first win. You were fast in practice. You're on the pole. What do you think, man? Can you pull it off today?
I think we got as good a chance as we ever had to do one of these deals. We've had a great air and stringing machine since we've unloaded. Toyota's given us great horsepower here. And Rodney Childers and the guys are doing a great job. So, man, I think today's as good as any other day, I think. What do you think?
Well, you got the best starting spot in the house, and, you know, if you can keep it there all day, I'd love to see you win one, man. You deserve it. Just hammer down, put on a good show, and bring that thing home, put her in victory circle. What do you say?
All right, buddy, we're going to do our best. Appreciate everything, and thank you for giving me my chance there, boss. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. You're a good man, and good luck.
It was Darrell that took David Rudiman off of the short tracks and into what was then the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. Kyle Busch won yesterday. He beat Tony Stewart. They finished 1-2 in the nationwide race. Kasey Kahne's the only driver ever to win here from the pole. Matt Kenseth usually starts out back. There's two of those Roush cars on row 2. Watch out for Matt today. Jeff Gordon, that long victory drought, will that be broken today as he shares the front row for the second week in a row, this time with David Rudiman. Make it a great race day with the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. And here are FedEx keys to the race.
Let's take a look at the trends or the patterns that a crew chief would look at, especially in the last 8 spring races, which has been NASCAR on Fox. The first caution, normally around lap 22, only once in the past 8 years has it come after lap 30. The longest green flag run, average of 96 laps. We always have a minimum of 1 green flag set of pit stops. Fuel run here is about 54 to 58 laps. The last caution, this race is 334 laps, around lap 305. Last year we got a caution with 3 laps to go that bunched them up. This is a tough race to stay on the lead lap. The average, even with the free pass over the last 8 races, an average of 14 cars. Only twice more than 15 cars were on the lead lap at the end of the race.
Thanks, Larry. Now making a great race day with the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager.
A lot of guys in the garage area are thanking Larry for doing all this because now they don't have to.
I do a lot of legwork for him.
That's right.
Let's get some late stories from pit road. Matt Yoakum.
Mike, earlier Carl Edwards talked about the dramatic change in weather today, the temperature 54 degrees, but crew chiefs like Chad Knaus, that makes them want to utilize all the technology they have in their arsenal. Even pagers that give them up-to-the-minute weather conditions as far as wind gusts. The latest measurement here, 10 miles per hour. That's what they have going on here on pit road. And Dick Berggren, a little farther down pit road, it all goes down to what the driver computes back to his crew chief from the seat.
Yeah, and several of the drivers told me this morning, Matt, that a wind this strong will pick the car up and toss it around, maybe even shove it into a corner deeper than they want to go. But Dale Earnhardt Jr. told me that he's not at all concerned about the wind. Jr. today starts in the 20th spot. His fans hoping he's finishing first. Mike?
Ready to race in Texas. This will be the 26th race in what's now the Sprint Cup Series in the great state of Texas.
Here you see 500 miles, 334 laps, pit road speed 45 miles per hour. The pit window for Sunoco race fuel 54 to 58 laps. DW, she may not be the biggest, but she's the baddest and the fastest. Reach up there and pull those belts tight one more time.
Yeehaw! Boogity, boogity, boogity! Let's go racing, boys!
Rudiman packs it into turn 3. Here comes Kenseth on the bottom. David Rudiman trying to lead that first lap.
I tell you, though, he is in a hole right there with a 17 up his back bumper and a 24 on his outside. That makes that car hard to handle.
What Matt Kenseth is doing, he's easing it into the corner. He's nailing that throttle, and he gets such a run like right there off the corner.
Jeff Gordon led the first lap. He led the first pile of laps at Martinsville last week. He wants to seal the deal and lead the last lap. Hasn't been able to do it in quite a while.
I don't really like David Rudiman being pinned down on the bottom like that. You get that arrow push, believe it or not, up off the corner. Right now you can do that with fresh tires, but you can't do that long.
Paul Menard has moved up a spot to 4th behind Kenseth. David Ragan 5th. Kyle Busch In 6th, Tony Stewart. Here's Casey Kane in 8th with Jimmy Johnson.
And I think the reason David was fighting so hard with Jeff Gordon, he wanted to lead that first lap bad, but he saw that it wasn't going to work, so he's falling in line now, and Gordon is scooting away.
I just think the new tire combination that we're running in a lot of places in 2009, a left side tire that has a lot more grip. Steve Letarte, Jeff Gordon's crew chief, told me, said Jeff Gordon loves the feel of that tire. It helps him feel the front end.
Robbie Gordon slid up the racetrack, but he did manage to gather it back in. He almost slid up right in front of the whole second half of the field.
Would you like to see how that happened and why that happened?
I sure would.
He had a little bit of help. Watch these two guys right here. The 2 car and the 07 car.
Wow.
Excuse me, coming through.
Now remember, that's happening at about 170 miles per hour right there in the middle of the corner.
And just remember, that car, the 2 car, he was bad fast at Atlanta. He led 3/4 of the race. Very similar racetrack. I think he's in a hurry to get to the front.
And he was bad frustrated last week on the radio. And with their lack of progress.
And he had a great practice. He was second quick in practice, had a bad qualifying run. I believe that car is better than it qualified for sure.
Tell you what, Greg Biffle, he's been on the move. He started back in the 14th position. He's now moved up to 13th. He got a little bit high up the racetrack. Definitely a racetrack Greg Biffle has won at, a track that he likes.
When you can get grip up high off a turn 2, it makes you look like you got an afterburner going down that back straightaway. You get off a turn 2 with so much speed when you can run that high line.
When you need it, show you good.
Right behind him. I don't know if I'd bet on Carl Edwards today, but I surely would not bet against him. He swept the 2 Texas races last year and practiced well. Edwards started 13th. That's where he's running.
That was a prime example of having to get out of the throttle off the corner and how much it hurts you all the way down the straightaway.
Well, I think it won't take long, Larry, until these guys will be venturing up around the top of this racetrack. There's just so much more momentum there. You can carry so much more speed off the turns. It gets rid of some of that dreaded push that you have off of 2 and off of 4 when you can run that high line.
For the lead, here comes Rudeman back straightaway. He ran Jeff Gordon down, drops to the inside, and will try to lead his first lap of the day right here. Steve Burns.
And Mike, before the race, David Rudeman said that in practice yesterday, they made some changes to that race car that actually made it better on the longer run. So not a surprise that Rudeman has gone back by the 24.
Well, sometimes, you know, the tire pressures are pretty low when you start a race here. You give those pressures a chance to come up, and that changes the car dramatically. But you think that Jeff Gordon might be saying, I have seen this act way too many times.
Well, he just moved to the outside to let Matt Kenseth go. And Kenseth's been better on the high groove than on the bottom, and yet he moved to the inside to pass Gordon for second.
Yeah, I'm really not concerned about Kenseth so much. I believe Jeff Gordon is going backwards.
I tell you, a car I'm impressed with. I know we're early in the race. We're only at lap 10. We talked about him being an unknown. Is that car right there, the 98 car of Paul Menard, had a great run in the Nationwide Series race yesterday, qualified 3rd, finished 5th. His crew told me it's amazing how much bounce he has in his step when he has a good race on Saturday coming into Sunday's race. But I think his qualifying run Friday for this race helped a ton too.
Boy, these long races, 500 miles, what you have to really focus on as a driver like Paul is finishing this race. Get yourself in a position, run good, and be around at the finish. Give yourself a chance to win.
9th place battle, Marcus Ambrose. The Aussie moving up from 11th. You see him right behind Casey Kane.
And his teammate is leading the race. Got to believe they've shared some information. That car looks like it's getting better as we go into the race, a few laps.
So guys, I believe the car on the move, we're looking at him at the top of the racetrack there. We talked about him just a minute ago. Greg Biffle in that 16 car, slowly but surely picking them off one at a time.
What you hope for as a driver when they drop the green flag, that your car will handle the way it needs to so you can move forward, so you don't have to give up spots and lose track position.
Battle resumed from yesterday. Kyle Busch, who won the Nationwide race, Tony Stewart driving Kevin Harvick's car, finished 2nd. They are now running 6th and 7th.
I don't know what's happened to the 24, but something has, Krista.
loose, Daryl. That is what Jeff just got on the radio on lap 8 and said his car is extremely loose. And you know, no one needs to remind Jeff Gordon that this is one of only 2 tracks he hasn't won. He said everyone does the reminding for him. He said he has answered that question 10 to 15 times since he's been here at Texas this weekend.
And Daryl, that's probably one reason he's moved up the racetrack. He can't turn the steering wheel because it's loose.
Yeah, you just got to find a bigger circle to run in, and that happens to be up around the top.
Paul Menard chases Jeff Gordon for 3rd, while pole sitter David Rudiman leads here in Texas.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing is sponsored by DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you got to get DirecTV. By Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile, it'll change the way you experience the race. By Aflac, ask about it at work. And by Toyota, moving forward.
18 laps complete. Pole sitter David Rudiman leading Matt Kenseth and Paul Menard, a Toyota and 2 Fords at the front of the field here in Texas in the early going. Carl Edwards has had such success here at Texas Motor Speedway. Today's Aflac trivia question: who is the only other driver to win 3 Cup races in Texas?
Now that's a trick question. You can't think about Texas Motor Speedway alone. You have to think about the state of Texas.
Do you want to just give them the answer?
No.
Larry, I think they knew it was a trick question.
I sat up here before the show and scratched my head for 10 minutes looking at that card.
We'll give you a little while. We'll help you a little more. There have been not 1, but 3 racetracks in Texas to host races in what is now the Sprint Cup Series.
I've given them all the help I'm going to give them.
That's all I'm giving. You got a branding iron in this fire?
Not now.
He's just dying to dive in on this one.
Jeff Gordon has his hands full.
I believe his teammate, the winner from Martinsville, Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car, I think that car is starting to fall off just a little bit. He was moving forward. He actually lost a spot, but I've been watching the lap times, and he's about 3 or 4 tenths off of the leader, David Rudiman, right now.
It's not unusual to start this race and have the car too loose because you know these guys, the crew chiefs, the smart guys know it's going to tighten up. They just got to have it where the driver can hang on to it until, Larry, it comes to you.
One driver moving in the other direction forward is Kurt Busch. Dick Berggren?
Yeah, he sure is, Mike. Kurt Busch started in the 28th position, and he's already worked himself up to the 19th spot. So he is having a much better day here than he had last weekend at Martinsville. They came with a car different from the car that won in Atlanta, dominated the race at Atlanta, but they have moved the setup on Busch's car today to that Atlanta setup, and it obviously suits him quite well.
I agree, Doc. I'm watching that car because I just remember how dominant he was at Atlanta. When they said they didn't bring the same car, that concerned me. But that car right now looks exactly like that car that Atlanta did 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's getting high in the turns and really getting off well.
At the other end of the scale, Kevin Harvick started 17th. Larry, he's now down to 31st.
Yeah, I've been watching this car, and he almost got ran over on the front straightaway a while ago. And right now, the Richard Childress cars, they only have 1 car in the top 20, and that's Jeff Burton in 20th. But Krista, the 29, like some other cars, starting to fall back.
Absolutely, Larry Mack. Right now, Kevin Harvick said his car is sideways all the way through the corners, and then off the corners, he cannot get it to turn down the straightaway.
Well, ideally, you'd like to get a caution early enough to make the adjustment. Let's see what this 29.
This is what we've been talking about. He is so slow off the corner. Look at Denny Hamlin, the 11 car. You could see how loose the 29 was there, and Denny Hamlin almost gets into the back of him. Daryl, I'm going to go back to something you said. You said that a lot of people anticipated this track's going to tighten up as rubber gets down. I just think, as we have seen time and time again, this car doesn't get tighter, and maybe this softer left side tire I talked about may not let them get tighter. They may actually get looser as you get into a run.
You know, you rung a bell. You're exactly right. I've heard that a number of times about this car, anticipating it to change, and it doesn't go in the direction you think it's going to.
Another fella going in the right direction, Denny Hamlin, just passed his young teammate Joey Logano. Logano's the only rookie contender in the race. Scott Speed failed to qualify. Logano started 10th. He's now 17th. Hamlin started 22nd. He has gained 6 positions.
And as I mentioned at the top of the show, that 11 car was good on long runs yesterday. He may not have had the fastest race car, but he was good on the long runs.
Well, in practice, he was in the top 3 in all the major categories we look at. Top 3 in fastest individual lap, 5 consecutive lap average. Steve, and he was fastest of the drivers that ran 10 consecutive laps for average.
Mike, he was, and his crew chief, Mike Ford, said the biggest difference in Denny Hamlin this year over last, he's much more involved and integrated in the team. He said, quite frankly, we're disappointed that we haven't won every race this year.
And I think that's a little bit of the psyche that a driver gets into. Late in a race, how many times have we seen Hamlin have trouble and not win races he dominated? Last Sunday, he had that race won, and it got away from him. And sometimes that works on you when you get down near the end of the race. You look in your mirror or you look around and you say, well, wonder what's going to happen this week.
He's finished second the last 2 weeks.
You saw Tony Stewart, who just moved up to 3rd. Here's the 12th place battle. Dale Earnhardt Jr. Not much of a battle anymore. Has started 20th, and he has climbed 8 positions, while Jimmy Johnson, Matt, has dropped 4.
And Texas, Mike, typically a great place for Jimmy Johnson. The past 5 races, 3 times he has finished second or better. His biggest description of how his race car is handling the Chad Knaus is, I just get to the center of the corner and I just have to put so much wheel into it. We're halfway through the first run already, computing what changes are going to make to this car on their first stop.
Dave Blaney has made a stop.
Another stop. That's second or third one.
Okay. David Rudiman, the pole sitter, has led all but 7 laps so far. He has a 2.5 second lead on Matt Kenseth, 30 laps into the Samsung 500.
You're watching NASCAR on Fox.
David Rudiman has led 29 of 36 laps so far. Jeff Gordon was out front for the first 7. Here in Texas. Okay, our Trick. Yeah, Trick the Duck. Today's Aflac trivia question. Carl Edwards has won 3 races here. There was one race at Myers Speedway in Houston, Texas, 1971, a half-mile paved oval. Bobby Allison started from the pole, led 253 of the 300 laps to win it. Texas World Speedway, where we ran 8 Cup races from 1969 to 1981, a 2-mile high banked oval in College Station. And Richard Petty won in December of 71, June of 72, and 3. Darrell won a race at Texas World Speedway in 1979, passed some brash young rookie to win it.
Yep.
Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, we did. That was one of I love Texas Motor Speedway. I mean, I love this place right here. The last time they worked on this place, they really made it fun to drive.
You know, Mike, we're 38 laps into this race. Just look at the speeds of David Rudiman. Over 180 miles an hour getting off into turn 1. The slowest speed, about 146, and we are well into a run where these tires are really starting to slide around.
I see some
is coming.
I see some ugly cars off turn 4 though. Holy cow, they turned them sideways. When you can read the numbers from up here on the right side, it's getting pretty sideways.
But Mike, I think 2 things is happening. I think maybe Matt Kenseth, the 17, is a little better than Rudiman right now. Rudiman has been catching the lap cars absolutely in the worst place you can catch them, right in the corner, just as he caught Bill Elliott and Regan Smith in that 78 and 3 and 4.
Matt, what is Matt Kenseth saying about his car?
One of the biggest factors, Mike, the weather. Talking about the wind, very tricky, especially entering turn 1. He says the car is free in. His biggest issue after that, though, a little low on rear grip, but he feels like the wind is causing a lot of his issues.
Well, I think David would be a really, really cautious through traffic, though. Here he is. He's leading the race, and you heard him say when I talked to him, this is the best chance they've had yet to win one of these things. I think he's going to play it a little conservative, particularly working the traffic.
Been watching David Rudiman's teammate here, Marcos Ambrose, in that 47 car, started just outside the top 10. He has now moved up to the 7th position.
Jeff?
Guys, the thing that impressed me about Marcos Ambrose is not only his personality, but the way he's been received by one of his owners, Brad Daugherty. I mean, the cool thing about it, Brad said that right now, Marcos, we're having to kind of rein this guy back. He believes he can go up there and win a race. We've got to be careful, though, Jeff, as he told me. We want to make sure we get good, solid finishes so we can stay up in the points and be in position to make sure we don't have to worry about that, because we already know that if we make mistakes, if he gets caught up in a wreck, we lose an engine, we can fall out of this comfort zone. But he is so high on this young man, it's unbelievable. He is really believing that Marcos Ambrose can get a win for this team this year.
Steve Burns.
Mike, Marcos Ambrose just telling his crew, I can't get the left side down off the corner. The more I hit the gas, the tighter the car gets.
Now let's clarify. Marcos' car is owned by Tad Geschechter and Brad Daugherty, the NBA 5-time All-Star. However, it's run out of Michael Waltrip Racing with equipment from that team, and that's why he considers himself a teammate to Michael and David Rudiman.
Yeah, I think actually Rob Kaufman, one of Michael's partners, might be even listed as owner on that 47 car.
And that's correct because of the swapped car owner points that occurred during the offseason.
But I think one of the things that's really helped Marcos, and he told Larry and I and you, Mike, that he's comfortable. He's able to sit in the car and concentrate on his driving. He's much more comfortable.
And there he is among the Toyota top performers of the race at lap 45.
Yeah, he told us that they realized it was not going to work, them trying to operate as a single car operation. He said the only way it was going to work is to buy into the multi-car operation of Michael Waltrip Racing. And obviously, I think it's working pretty well, because realistically, even though he's not considered a Rookie of the Year candidate, he's a rookie.
So his teammate, David Rudiman, in the 00 has led all but 7 laps of this race. And the acid test for Rudiman is going to be when they make that first pit stop. If they can get him out in the same shape he comes in, he's got a chance to contend. But now Matt Kenseth in that 17 wants the lead.
He has been like the Pac-Man coming, just little by little.
Well, Matt's been able to run high and low, and David's been pretty committed to the bottom. Matt's made up a lot of time, particularly in traffic, with his ability to run up high and low, getting around these lap cars, and David's been stuck on the bottom the whole time.
You know what I think we're going to see, we showed at the top of the show, our race analysis. A fuel window here is 54 to 58 laps. We're at lap 46. I think we'll start to see some cars doing some short pitting, especially as cars get lapped.
That's Casey Mears in the 07, who just won a lap down, one of the Richard Childress cars. And Max Pappas just ahead of the leader, the Italian-born road racer, making his second oval track start. Back at 6th place, Ambrose moves past Jeff Gordon.
But Gordon's car has settled down quite a bit. It's not as, hadn't been falling back quite as badly. How's he like his car now, Krista?
A little bit better. You can even tell his voice, Daryl, on the radio, a little bit more calm. He said his car is tightening up in the middle of the corners, but it is still extremely loose off. Steve Letarte said, don't worry, we're going to give you a pretty major adjustment, give you something to lean on. Right now, though, he is holding on to a wild bull here in Texas.
Now, what helped that car tighten up is we're getting down to where they're almost out of fuel. There's a lot of weight out of the trunk now, which put more weight on the front of the car. That tightens the car up.
As you burn fuel off, the car will transfer weight more to the front, and that'll help tighten it up.
Different drivers experiencing different problems. Jeff Gordon's dropped 5 spots. Kevin Harvick has dropped 16 spots from where he started the day to 33rd. Listen to what he told his crew.
No rear grip and the front tires are pushing. You do the math.
Okay, which end you want me to work on first?
Yeah. Wonder how the spare tire is.
But I think, Daryl, you almost have to focus more on the looseness. You can't drive this racetrack loose as fast as it is.
No, the driver has no control over a loose car. That thing can turn around and spin it in a wall easily. At least with the front end pushing, you can work the throttle and the brake to make it turn.
And let's not pick on Kevin Harvick, because the beauty of this sport is they can improve that car. Look at Jimmy Johnson last week. Start of the race, he's junk. Comes in on 2 of the first 3 cautions, ends up winning the race. Here's Juan Pablo Montoya. He is in along with A.J. Allmendinger, the number 1 of Martin Truex, and our leader, Matt Kenseth. Matt Yoakum.
And Matt Kenseth looking for an air pressure change from Drew Blickensderfer for his crew chief to try to get a little more forward bite on this race car. Solid stop so far to Kristen.
Jeff Gordon saying his loose condition was getting double worse, a major wedge adjustment, and that's what call from Steve Letarte for Jeff Gordon. The crew, you see the wrench going in. It's going to be a 4-tire stop for the 24.
Kurt Busch, Bobby Labonte, Carl Edwards are in. Reed Sorensen. Here comes Harvick, Robbie Gordon, and here comes our pole sitter Rudiman. David Rudiman pits out of the lead, which now goes to Tony Stewart. And let's see how quickly that Rodney Childress crew can get him out, Steve.
And Mike, last communication from David Rudiman as he hits pit road is, I'm a little bit free all the way through, but don't change a thing. Matt.
Steve, a wedge and track bar adjustment already completed on Jimmy Johnson Chevrolet. Mike Lingerfeld hits the lugs in the left front, and he's away. Krista?
Greg Biffle, his race car extremely tight everywhere on the racetrack. A wedge adjustment, wedge out for the 16.
Most of the leaders are in or have been in. 14.5 seconds for Rudiman's crew.
Yeah, just think about this. Let's wait till it shakes out here and look where the 17 car is and look where the 00 is. It looks to me like the 17 really put it on them in the pits.
Steve.
And Mike, Denny Hamlin saying his car gets tight when he gets on the gas pedal. A quarter round down on the right rear for Hamlin. You see him parked kind of sideways in his box.
Kyle Busch picked up the lead as everyone else pitted. And here he comes, Steve.
Mike, Kyle Busch also saying that when he got on the gas, similar circumstance to his teammate Denny Hamlin, he's tight when he gets on the throttle. Air pressure adjustment for the 18 of Kyle Busch.
And there's our new leader right there, Matt Kenseth in the 17 car, who had just taken the lead right before this rash of green flag stops.
15.4 for Kyle Busch. So pit stops cycle through from lap 50 to lap 54. And Matt Kenseth, a 2-time winner this season already, is your leader. Big crowd on hand north of Fort Worth, Texas. 25-mile-an-hour breeze hasn't kept the crowd out of the grandstand. You're in the pits there of 16th place Jimmy Johnson, last week's winner and defending series champ, as Matt Kenseth leads David Rudiman by 2.1 seconds. Bottom row center, Dale Jr. started 20th. He is up to 11th. 31 of the 43 starters are still on the lead lap at 61 laps. Dick?
During that first run, Mike, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car went from loose in the middle of the turn to a little free in to tight at the end. Obviously, he was paying attention to what Larry and Darrell said about how the weight percentage changes as the fuel burns off. Drew had a good stop. He came in 10th. He went out 11th, lost just one spot. He is running in 11th with a car that's performing very well today.
It's been a racetrack he's always liked. He sat on the pole here a year ago. He got his very first Nationwide Series win here back in 1998 and got his very first Sprint Cup Series win here in his rookie season in 2000.
These two guys here having a pretty good go at it.
Fifth place changes hands. Greg Biffle. And ahead of Biffle, look at that 98 of Paul Menard. They had a good pit stop. He's running right near where he started. Here are drivers who have moved up the most since the start of this race. Kurt Busch started 28, now running 13th.
And you saw McMurray there. He made those 13 positions gain early, and then he kind of just stalled out. In fact, he's the only Roush Fenway car right now that's not in the top 8. There goes McMurray right there in the 26 car. Now that's not a battle for position. Mike Bliss in the 09 car is 19 laps down. He's been in and out of the garage area. You see a lot of damage on the right side of his car from very early in the race.
Second place, here comes Tony Stewart.
You know, we talked about this last week at Martinsville. Tony Stewart has to be so proud. I'm sure there's nobody had more questions in their mind about him making this move from Joe Gibbs Racing to Stewart-Haas Racing to an operation that had struggled to even stay in the top 35. And here he's been running in the top 5, running in the top 10, up in the points. I'm sure he's breathing a huge sigh of relief.
And he just, for whatever reason, he seems so much more relaxed. I mean, he's, you know, you do interviews with him and he's cutting up and fun. And the boys in the shop say comes in every Monday and Tuesday, patting everybody on the back and playing cranks on them. I think the guy's really found his niche as a car owner.
But I think the thing he did the best job at, and his teacher was Joe Gibbs, he surrounded that operation with good people.
Definitely did that.
Steve has more.
And Mike, keep in mind, Tony Stewart was with Greg Zipadelli, his crew chief, for 10 years. Now with crew chief Darian Grubb. Darian Grubb saying, I'm really surprised, pleasantly so, how quickly our communication has developed, and communication develops confidence.
You know what, though, when I think about Darian Grubb and I think about Greg Zipadelli, they have similar personalities. They have similar backgrounds. They're kind of low-key guys. They don't get it all up on the chip. When Tony says something, you know, or something goes wrong, I think those personalities are working out really well for Tony.
Well, he's got his hands full of David Rudiman again in that 00 car. This continues to be a battle for second. This is a little over 2 seconds behind our leader, Matt Kenseth, in that 17 car. You know, Matt Kenseth was one of the guys we talked about at the top of the show, Mike. You know, he won the first 2 races of the season. And since then, he's only had one top 20 finish. I mean, it's been engines blowing up. It's been wrecks. It's been handling problems. I know we got a long way to go, but I'm sure they feel pretty good about rebounding here.
Kind of felt like we might see this.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing on Fox is sponsored by Budweiser. Reach for the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager.
74 laps complete in Texas. We told you at the top of the day, Matt Kenseth starts up front, watch out. He has now led 24 laps, and he's out in front of Tony Stewart by a second. 2.4 seconds ahead of David Rudiman in third. Greg Biffle and Paul Menard having a career day running in 5th place.
I think the 17 car is going to have a little company here.
Yes, he is. At 14, Tony Stewart is a coming.
Tony Stewart stepped out of Joe Gibbs Racing at the end of 2008 and out of the Home Depot Toyota. Its new driver, Joey Logano, gives us his thoughts on the season so far in today's The Home Depot Rookie File.
Okay, that's about where I'd evaluate it right now. You know, I think we had ups and downs. I think if we finish where we run, I think we'll be a lot better. Last few weeks we've had some bad luck. But looking at each race, we get better throughout the race. And I think that's key. You know, as long as we get better by the end of the race, I feel like we had a good day. And when we come back to these places next time, if we can start where we ended, we won't be behind the 8 ball anymore, and hopefully keep getting better.
Joey started 10th today, now trying to hang on to the lead lap.
The biggest thing they're trying to do is put some breathing room into the top 35 where they don't have to sweat that. They had the engine failure at Bristol. They had the right front tire issue at Martinsville. If they can just have some top 25 runs, they can put a little pad in that top 35 situation, which guarantees them a spot in the show.
I don't think they probably expected to be to have this much trouble. But look here, we got a good battle here for 3rd place.
Greg Biffle in that 16 car started back in the 14th position without the aid of a caution through 1 green flag pit stop. He has made his way to 3rd. Now sets its sights on Tony Stewart in that 14 car.
4 of those Roush Fenway Fords in the top 8 position, and 5 Roush Yates powered Fords in the top 8.
Those are the right horses for this course, that's for sure.
Jimmy Johnson, boy, having a tough day. Not like the start of Martinsville where they worked on that car for 3 straight pit stops and made it so much better. But Johnson's been trying to knock the wall down up in turn number 2, Matt.
2 to 3/10 of a lap slower than leader Matt Kenseth. Jimmy says the car is just way too tight. He cannot get it to roll through the centers of both 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then moments ago, he keyed to Mike to something is really wrong here. Something's bound up in the center of both corners.
But see, what they had at Martinsville that we haven't had here yet is a caution flag. When you got time to come down pit road, early cautions, you can fix your car. Right now, you're caught in a box. This thing stays green. All you can do is come in, put tires on it, and get back out.
But just take a look right here. That shows you how far behind he is of leader Matt Kenseth. It's almost a half a lap.
This is the longest we have ever run at Texas Motor Speedway without a caution. In 2006, we went 65 laps to the first yellow. We're 80 laps into this race, caution free.
Yeah, if you remember my FedEx understanding the race, the first caution on the average the last that race, 8 races, comes around lap 22. We're well beyond that.
Johnson's teammate Jeff Gordon running in 6th place. Krista, he's 8 seconds off the leader.
Yeah, 8 seconds, kind of like being on that wild bull, right, Mike? Remember, Jeff Gordon was really loose off before the pit stop. Well, the adjustment worked, but it went too far. Now his car is tight off and extremely loose in. Jeff telling Steve Letarte it feels like his car wants to spin out. He even went as far to call his car evil.
Well, at these speeds, and particularly corner entry, I believe if I was going to have a problem here, I certainly wouldn't want it as I entered the corner at right at 200 miles an hour. So they need to fix that loose end to get him comfortable.
Kevin Harvick just in front of him, one of a number of drivers who have gone a lap down, not through any mishap, but perhaps by missing the setup, long green run and a pit stop. So 1 lap down, Robbie Gordon, David Gilliland, Martin Truex, Ryan Newman, and Harvick, among others. Matt Kenseth 0.7 of a second ahead of Tony Stewart. The lead has changed hands. Matt Kenseth is having trouble getting off the corner, and Darrell, the car just doesn't seem to want to run down the straightaway, and Tony Stewart caught him and passed him. Let's show it.
I'm not sure what's going on here because the 17 is really fast through the corner, but when he gets on the straightaway, it's like, well, there he certainly had a problem off the corner, but he's been slow down the straightaway.
But you can see how quick Tony went by him down the front straightaway, a lot because he couldn't get off the corner off turn 4 that last time.
Of course, if you can't get back in the gas and you can't come off the corner with a lot of speed, then you're going to look slow on the straightaway.
Michael Waltrip trying to stay on the lead lap there in the 55. He is now behind Kenseth, the first car 1 lap down. You know, you can go to Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR, and ask just about anything about the race, about pre-race, about where the race is, or about during pre-race. What is the proper etiquette to be observed during the playing of our national anthem? Get the answer now at Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge for a chance to win daily prizes or a trip to Talladega.
Larry, I just don't feel like that's a trick question. I feel like that's
you noticed I did not even go there. Tell you what, I think I know what's going on with Matt Kenseth. I just got the report from the pits that his car is really starting to tighten up. And when your car is not turning, it obviously binds the car up at the speed you're carrying here. And I think that's one reason he's not getting off the corner and the speed's not showing up down the straightaway.
And I believe if his car is tightening up like that, he ought to run higher. He keeps that thing right around the bottom, which will even choke it down more, bog it down more. I believe if he had run a little higher, maybe it would help free the car up and he might pick up a little speed. He'll figure that out, I bet you, before long.
Kenseth stands 0.7 of a second behind Tony Stewart. This is the second time Stewart's led today. During the round of green flag pit stops back around lap 50, Stewart stayed out a little longer than Kenseth and David Reutimann and led a lap, so it's the second time Stewart's led today.
This is a battle right here for 11th, 12th, and 13th. Kyle Busch in the 18, Casey Kane. You can see the run he gets on the high side in the 9, and Jeff Burton in the 31.
Just ahead of them, Kyle Busch hanging on to 11th place, 13 seconds back of the leader, Steve.
And Mike, Kyle Busch just said, my biggest problem is I'm tight after the center of the corner. I don't know what to tell you guys. I'm just not that fast right now.
And Darrell, isn't it amazing? The first 30 or 40 laps, all we heard was loose, loose, loose. Now here we are getting close to lap 100. It's like maybe some rubbers went down on this track now, and we're starting to hear that tight, tight, tight.
That's what you would expect to hear. You know, if the track and the car and the tires and all go like they should, being a little loose to start with, and usually not a bad thing. Just don't want to be over the fence.
And if they tightened it up on that first stop, that may have jumped the fence.
That's exactly what I think happened to the 24 car.
And that 18 just about spun out right in front of Jeff Burton coming through the quad oval of the front straightaway. How about his older brother, Kurt Busch, running in 10th place, Dick?
Kurt Busch is having a great day, Mike. Started in the 28th spot, so he's already passed 18 cars. He has tried both the top and the bottom. His car is a little bit more loose on the bottom than it is on the top, but it's pretty good every place on the racetrack. This crew, however, is getting ready. They're concerned that they're going to have to do another green flag stop in the not distant future.
Now, for those of you listening for interesting scanner chatter like last week, car owner Roger Penske, we're told, is not at the track today. He's with his open wheel team elsewhere and is not up on the roof on the radio with his drivers, Kurt Busch, Dave Stremme, and Sam Hornish. Well, it is windy here today, and wrappers and empty cans can get away, and one did.
That was a very timely caution because, as Dick mentioned, we were getting very close to what would be our second green flag pit stop, and that was quite a break for David Stremme, Brian Vickers, Clint Boyer. They were just about to go a lap down.
And I know Michael worked really hard to try to stay right there to get the lucky dog, but I'm not sure he did. It appears Allmendinger may have gotten the lucky dog.
Indeed, A.J. Allmendinger, first car one lap down at the moment of caution, so he will come back around and give us 24 cars on the lead lap when we restart. We went 97 laps without a caution flag. That is a record for Texas Motor Speedway, eclipsing the old mark by almost 50%.
But isn't it amazing? FedEx understanding the race, the average longest green flag run, 96 laps. There we were, right there at it.
When we had that shot of Michael, look what he's got over here, Larry. This is his pit road assignment right here. That's all the cars that are around him on pit road. So he can find his, you know, he starts knowing his 12, 7, 39, 55, and then he's got the 88 in front of him.
That's a great idea.
I like that.
Great idea. I think Michael may have had a little issue earlier in the season finding his pit box.
All right, pit road is open. And here come the leaders, headed by Tony Stewart, but pitted way up at that end of pit road first. To peel off will be Matt Kenseth in the 17. Here's Matt.
And Drew Blickensderfer and Matt went back and forth on what adjustments to make. At this juncture, going to go for a slight track bar adjustment and an air pressure adjustment. He needs more grip in the front of the race car. It was tighter on this run than the first one. Krista?
Greg Irwin asking Greg Biffle, do you need to be freed up a little more? Greg said, no, we're pretty good here. I don't want to do too much. So just a slight air pressure adjustment for Biffle. Steve?
Krista, Tony Stewart saying, I am tight in the center and loose off, so they're going to put some air in the left rear. David Rudiman, meanwhile, says he's losing the nose in the center. Pretty big adjustment. They'll drop the air in both front tires.
Here's our Verizon race off pit road as the Killer Bees, Matt Kenseth's team, once again are the best of the West.
I tell you what, the 016 team of Biffle, not bad today either.
NASCAR Sprint Cup Racing on Fox is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts. Napa, get the good stuff. By AT&T, your world delivered. And by the all-new 09 F-150. It's not just a new truck, it's a new F-150.
Teammates Matt Kenseth and Greg Biffle will be the leaders on this restart ahead of Tony Stewart. Just 6 days to Fox Saturday Baseball when the Red Sox take on the Angels, Astros, Cards, or Twins battle their AL Central nemesis, the White Sox. Fox Saturday Baseball presented by DirecTV, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. 3 great matchups in high definition. Check your local listings.
Well, I think after this round of caution flag pit stops, we'll see some different race cars. I think guys that were struggling are going to have a lot better cars now.
Let's have a look at today's Ford Drive One moment. Carl Edwards swept both races at Texas last season, becoming the only driver to do the Texas 2 flip. 3 wins at this speedway, all coming in the last 7 races. And last fall, he led 107 laps and ran the final 69 laps on 1 tank of fuel. To fire those 6 shooters into the air, he led over 500 miles at this speedway last season. Want to win a Ford Fusion? Log on to WeRaceUWin.com and see how. There's our 3D Ford Fusions at the front of this field. Kenseth and Biffle. There's Tony Stewart. David Rudiman, our pole sitter, came in 4th, came out 4th. And Carl Edwards up to 5th, gaining 1 spot on pit road. Big loser on those stops, Paul Menard, dropped from, let's see, 5th to 8th.
I believe this is going to be a very interesting restart for several reasons. We got a lot of guys, they want to get their lap back. I think Greg Biffle wants to lead this race in the worst kind of way in that 16.
24 cars on the lead lap as we get set for the restart. It'll be our Claret and Clear to Drive restart. Live Claret and Clear, indoors and out.
Well, Larry, a lot of guys I just know they needed a chance to work on their cars now. They've had one. I think you'll see some different race cars from here on.
I'll tell you a car that's cracked the top 10, and he had almost fallen out of the top 20 through virtue of the pit stop, and I think his car was good at the tail end of that long run, was Jeff Burton in that 31 car. He has now moved into the top 10.
Oh, he'll be around.
One car that had a very long stop was Kyle Busch. He came into the pits 14th, came out 20th, so a lot of work was done there.
He had a lug nut hang in the wheel. That's the reason he lost so many spots on that pit stop.
Back under green in Texas, coming to 1/3 distance here in a few laps.
Biffle got a good run through 1 and 2, but he was kind of boxed in there. Now, who got the good run was Tony Stewart at 14, but he had to throw out of the throttle.
Coming off turn 4, let's crank it up. Breakaway coming off this restart. A lot of action mid-pack on back, and a good bit of frustration from drivers whose cars hadn't been quite right, trying to make something happen. Here's that log jam.
Well, you get lap cars in there and you get cars on the outside there trying to get by them, and boy, does it bottle things up in a hurry. Everything happens in a hurry here.
Well, Daryl and I have been watching it. The car up there to the top of the racetrack, Eric Almirola in the 8 car, he was caught in the middle, and they were splitting him left and right for 2 solid laps.
He was caught in a trap and couldn't get out.
Denny Hamlin running 18th. Mark Martin just ahead.
We've got 24 cars on the lead lap. Right now, Bobby Labonte in the Ask.com number 96 car. He's the first car 1 lap down. He'd love to see a caution. 2 cars that are in the garage area, Mike Bliss in the 09, Dave Blaney in the 66.
I believe that pit stop really helped the 24 car, Larry. I've been watching him, and that car is now down in the racetrack. It looks like it's going pretty good. He's moving forward again.
But I think what we'll have to do, Daryl, just like the start of the race, let's see where he's at about 12 laps into this run, because that's where he started backing up.
Car looks a lot better than it did before that caution came out.
Now, last time down the back straightaway, Kyle Busch was trying to gain some
he got left
racing
rear
room.
He got left rear cut down.
And we'll show you how.
He'll come to pit road under green.
That'll take Kyle Busch off the lead lap. Top of your screen with the white car there, which I believe is the 34. Oof. It's John Andretti.
Now, you know what? He was unhappy with that 34 car. Probably wouldn't get out of the way fast enough. So he's going to give me a little message about, hey, dude, move it.
Pull on that quarter panel, pull on the quarter panel, too.
He ended up paying the price for that little move.
They're going to go close to going 2 laps down because the leader's coming off turn 4 right now.
They just can't speed, which he's down at the end down there. He should be all right there.
But Darrell, this isn't Martinsville. You can't beat and bang like this at these speeds.
No.
I mean, you can, but look what happens.
Yeah, well, you end up hurting yourself. In that case, definitely hurt him.
He's trying desperately to get up to speed because he does not want to go a second lap down, because that becomes a big challenge with as many cars as we have 1 lap down.
There is the gap as Kyle Busch gets up to speed as he comes off turn number 4. Kenseth and Biffle are the race leaders.
You know, we talked about them ramping it up on this restart. The 3 Roush Fenway cars, Kenseth, Biffle, and Edwards, they ran their fastest laps 2 to 3 laps after that last restart.
Steve?
Mike, more trouble for Kyle Busch. He just said, I'm coming back in. Get the baseball bat out. I still have a bad tire rub. Get that sheet metal off my tire.
I don't see it. I think you need to calm him down a little bit. I don't see any smoke unless it's somewhere on the left side rubbing the fender and we can't tell it, and he can. I don't see any smoke.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely needs to try to stay out there. I don't see any smoke. There's the tire right there that came off the left rear of that 18 car. Right now, what the 18 car needs is a caution for several reasons.
His brother Kurt battles Dale Earnhardt Jr. for 13th. They're about 12 seconds behind the leader. Dick?
Well, Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car, they didn't do a lot of adjustment to it, Mike, but it had been loose on that last set of laps that we went before the caution flag, before the pit stop, so they've tightened it up a little bit. I'm also in Kurt Busch's pit, and they had a real narrow miss to what could have been a disaster. Busch got trapped into his pit area, and he wound up having to back the car up. And he wound up backing it right into Steve Williams. His catch can man didn't knock him over, but it was a very close one.
And the reason he was blocked in is Clint Boyer, which was one of the last cars on the lead lap, and the 33 car is pitting right in front of him. So I'm sure the 2 cars pit stop was well finished. Clint Boyer was still sitting there.
114 laps complete, and 3 of the top 5 right now, including the 2 leaders, are those Roush Fenway Fords. Laps complete. Greg Biffle has been out in front for the last 3 laps. He passed his 4 teammate Matt Kenseth to take over the lead. Tony Stewart, David Reutimann, Jeff Gordon, 1 through 5. Darrell, you talked about drivers having a chance to work on their cars during the caution flag and try to make them better. Who's done a good job of that?
Well, I think so far you got to say the 24 did the best job, because he's now going forward again, not backward like he did at the start of the race. And the other guy I think has done a great job of getting up through the traffic and got good track position now is Jeff Burton in the 31 car. He's in the 8th place, and he continues to scratch and claw to the front.
All right, we're past 1/3 distance. Let's get down to the Hollywood Hotel for an AT&T race break.
Thanks, Mike. And on pace so far with 10 lead changes, Greg Biffle, the most recent to get out in front of Matt Kenseth, and the Roush Fenway Fords doing okay today. Carl Edwards running 6th, but we are on a pace anyway with just 1 caution of seeing a number of lead changes. Jeff, let's first talk about Kurt Busch. Mike mentioned earlier the issue with Roger Penske, and of course the attitude adjustment that may have taken place, but certainly his car and where Kurt is running, and Penske has said these 1.5-mile tracks have been a priority coming into this year.
Yeah, so that's the case right there. I mean, but coming off of last week, I got a chance to talk to Pat Tryson, the crew chief, and you know, we all know as far as crew chiefs, time to time, drivers are going to get a little bit upset. And the good thing about it was Pat said that he and Kurt's relationship has not been damaged. He really feels like, you know, they got an understanding.